And what's up? Welcome in GC Live. He is Chris Clark. I am Wes Mitchell. This show is, as always, brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network. Give Clint a shout, 803-771-6933. ClintHammond.com is how you can find out more information. And, of course, his NMLS number is 71597. Email is chammond@mortgagenetwork.com. Clint, a guy that is not only a Gamecock fan, but also as a Gamecock Central supporter and a huge supporter of GC Live, as you can tell. So all we ask is that if you're in that market to possibly buy a home or possibly refinance your house, just give Clint a chance. Let him earn your business. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Chris, a admittedly slightly abbreviated show that we're going to have here today, but we felt like we could not leave y'all hanging on a Monday. Preseason camp is well underway. Little bit of a quiet weekend. It was kind of this happens these days where you have, for the team, they're still grinding away. They had practices on Saturday, practices on Sunday, practice this morning. A little bit of a lull in the media availabilities. So it seemed, I would say, very quiet around here for a couple of days. But for the guys in the Garnet and Black, they're still grinding right away.
They are. And the team, in fact, media availability scheduled for today, Wes, they got off the field a little bit later than anticipated. So it was a pretty lengthy media availability as far as the window. Four different players spoke. We got a lot of questions actually on the Insiders Forum on Gamecock Central over the weekend and this morning. Hey, guys, anything from practice? And so we kind of just explained, reiterated the schedule. Again, no media availability over the weekend, no viewing windows. We will have a practice viewing window on Tuesday morning, tomorrow morning, August the 10th at 9:40, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get to see some more practice that day, so more returns of kind of our personal observations will be on Gamecock Central. But I got to hear from Kevin Harris today, and then three of the guys in the receiver room, and Jalen Brooks and Josh Vann, and also Chad Terrell, all spoke with the media after practice today.
Yeah, so Chris, I didn't know what to title the show. I was trying to get the YouTube event created, and I titled it, "What Have We Learned After 4 Practices?" And I don't want to sit here and then answer that question with nothing, because that I shouldn't have put that as the title if that's going to be the answer. So we got to come up with something to give them. I will say this. And by the way, what's up to everybody in the chat? I see actually quite a bit. Glad y'all stuck around and hung around for 2:30. A little bit of a late start here. What's up to Donnie Soul? I was actually at Dutch Fork today watching Dutch Fork scrimmage Greenville. Saw Donnie's kid. Big number 17 out there, Nick Soul, a great-looking prospect. Obviously, he was watching Antonio Williams out there. Dude, Greenville has some loaded with talent as well. So maybe if we have time, we'll get into that. Certainly, I'll have some thoughts on Gamecock Central at some point. But, Chris, I guess we need to start with Kevin Harris. I know you were there when he spoke. He gave a quick update. What was sort of – I saw what y'all said, but what was the vibe as far as how he feels about the injury? Did you get the vibe that he's back? I know he didn't really give a timetable, but he said, I'll be back for week 1. What can you share about what Kevin Harris had to say?
Yeah, and he said he feels good, which I don't know that, listen, in a setting like that, not sure you could count on Kevin Harris or another player to get up there and say, I don't feel so great, but he did reiterate that a few times that he feels good. He walked into the room and looked totally fine, but obviously walking into a room versus, getting bashed in practice and in a game situation, a little bit different. But looked fine, said he felt fine. Like you said, Wes, a couple different ways said that there's no particular time frame right now him to get back, but he was asked directly, do you expect to be back for the opener? Do you expect to be in the lineup? And he said, yes, I do. So if that holds, fantastic news for South Carolina, but still some time to go to get Kevin full go for either a return to practice or a game situation.
Yeah, and Chris, the more I think about it, man, so it's August 9th right now, right? September 4th, season opener. I think the key for Kevin Harris is not just to get back for week 1, but to get back full go, completely cleared early enough that you're able to get back completely in football shape. I don't know what, we're not there. I don't know what he's allowed to do right now, what he's not allowed to do. I'm not trying to make a bigger deal out of it than it is, but there is something to be said for, Kevin has the experience. It's not a thing where it's like you don't know what you're going to get from Kevin Harris. You know what you're going to get from Kevin Harris, but there's a difference in being in regular shape and being in football shape, being in game shape. So to me, that would be the biggest key for Kevin, will be to get back early enough to just get back out there, get a feel for it again, get your feet under you, and not be in a situation where you're trying to catch your wind in game situations, in my opinion, man.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, if you a guy getting cleared right before game one, and I think there's an underrated part of this, Wes. This is a new offense, and Kevin missed some time during the spring, right? So, yes, he has experience. He's been around the program a couple years. He obviously had a fantastic year last season, but this is a different offense. There's different terminology. There's schematically some different things. So, even a guy like Kevin Harris, anybody on this team, they need those physical reps, those mental reps as much as possible. Even before, this is a team. Look, Carolina should be able to take care of Eastern Illinois in week one, even if they walked in shorthanded. That's not something you ever want to take for granted. But the point is, you don't want to rush a guy back, not just because of an injury, but like you said, Wes, getting a guy, if he's not in tip-top game shape, you want him in tip-top game shape for when he does return. You don't want to sacrifice, a guy's well-being, a guy's health, just to rush him back. So certainly there's been no rush on the Kevin Harris front. I'm sure they'll take their time with that. Right now, from what he's saying, what Shane Beamer has said, they do expect him back week one, and, it is an ongoing process.
Jason's saying that my mic is a good bit lower than Chris's. I just messed with the settings. It's supposed to be automatic, but I don't know. Hopefully, Jason, maybe you can give me a little sound check there. Can you hear me a little bit better now? Always working through the kinks here. That's the beauty of going live. You just never know. Chris, some other guys spoke. I know you were there. Anything else catch your attention other than Jalen Brooks being amazed with how much mini golf is in Myrtle Beach? I don't know how that came up, but I saw Colin mention that on Twitter. So, but anything else as far as I know, Josh Vann is one of those guys, man, that you hear some positive things out of the spring. I know a lot of fans are probably in show me mode there, but still a kid that comes in as a 4-star, highly recruited, highly rated. We were talking to somebody the other day. I mean, Georgia really wanted this kid. This was not like Georgia just passed on him and South Carolina got him. So you kind of get the feeling, man, I don't know if this is fair, but you kind of get the feeling this is like that final opportunity for Josh to go out there and make some plays and make a name for himself. So what did you take away from hearing from some other receivers today?
Well, I thought it was a really interesting group of receivers, right? Because three guys, especially the first two, not to be unfair to Chad Terrell, but Josh Vann and Jalen Brooks, who both spoke before Chad Terrell, they have been mentioned more coming out of spring. We've seen them draw first-team reps. We've seen Shane Beamer, Justin Stepp, and Public Opportunities both speak highly of them as being guys that were productive. Pete Limbo, on special teams, has talked highly about Josh Vann and his kind of steadiness in the punt return game and how he's got a chance there. All of those guys that spoke today all have had kind of interesting and frankly difficult journeys and paths. And so three guys that South Carolina's counting on, especially those first two, to take a big step forward has not clicked for any of them so far in their careers for different reasons. And Jalen Brooks, I thought he was fantastic today. He really was very honest about all of it. He admitted that last season he was in a poor headspace. He kind of wasn't all there. Part of it he attributed to the fact that, he just did not know week to week. He's practicing. He's doing all the things he's supposed to do. When is he ever going to get cleared? Then he gets cleared, obviously had some disappointing moments, and doesn't play as well as he anticipated or anybody anticipated. And so that was difficult for him. He said even when he was on the field, there was just so much uncertainty and it was a difficult situation. So he feels a lot better now, feels more confident. Josh Vann was pretty open, Wes. He kind of went year by year. He said, look, my freshman year, I was behind some guys. I showed some flashes. Sophomore year, I was behind some guys, didn't do much. Last season, it was COVID. He got banged up. Wasn't a great year. So he had a lot of smiles and a lot of positivity, though, about the situation. And Chad Terrell, same deal, Wes. This is a guy where he admitted there was a time where he wasn't sure if he was going to play football again. Not necessarily that he couldn't physically do it, but just the difficulty of, rehabbing 2 ACL injuries essentially back to back just wears on you. But he said he attacked it. He decided to go for it. Said he feels good now. He feels confident. He's in a good place. So that's 3 guys that have had some struggles that seem to be. Now, again, the adversity has been minimal, going into the season, but they all credited the new staff and a lot of other people, trainers, things like that. But a lot more positive, going into this year. And so hopefully for them, and the hope is for South Carolina, those guys can turn in the best production that they have, in their careers to date.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said, Chris, for Jalen Brooks just making the jump that he did last year as far as the level of, ball you're playing and being in the SEC and going from playing, I don't know how many fans he played in front of before, but then all of a sudden you're on ESPN, you're in these massive stadiums. Now, it wasn't full capacity last year, obviously, but point being, you're still looking around and you're in a brand new place, right? Like this is a different arena you're in at this point. And just sort of, remember the back and forth. Oh, we expect Jalen Brooks to be cleared. Then he's not. Mm-hmm. Then there was hope again. Then he wasn't. And then it was like, boom, he's cleared. Go play ball. And that is not easy. And I think once there's so much of this that is mental. Once you're down on yourself or second guessing yourself, you have a couple of drops. Sometimes it's tough for guys to get back, especially with everything else that was going on last year. I mean, dude, in my opinion, guys like J.C. Horn aren't talking you up in practice unless you do have some ability. Like you've got something going for you. I distinctly remember in the interview that Steve Fink, because remember, none of us were allowed to actually go do interviews at the time. Steve Fink was getting video interviews after practice. And he talked to J.C. Horn, and he was bragging on this new Jalen Brooks guy. That doesn't happen if you don't have some ability to go play the game of football. Now, we've seen guys in the past that are great in practice. Can you transition it to the game field? Does it translate? We'll see, but if you're South Carolina, you're looking for hope. Brooks is going to be a guy. I feel like, Chris, he's going to get every opportunity to go show he can do it. And if you're South Carolina, you are going to need him to go do it.
Yeah, and I think, look, Brooks is there to carry on Joiners in that category. He did not speak today, but he's in there. And Vann is a really interesting one to me, Wes, because, you and I, we'll go to our graves saying it. We were very high on this kid out of high school. He has ability. Okay, you don't magically lose it. There's a question of whether or not it will ever translate to practice in the field. That's fair, right? Based on what we've seen. So can he do it? Will it happen? What we do know is there a better chance for many reasons of it happening this year. Like I said, strong look at punt return with Pete Limbo. Seems to have been happy with him. Justin Stepp, I distinctly remember him earlier this year talking about how Josh Vann had really come on the last 2 weeks of spring. And in the kind of the whole thing today was kind of like an honesty hour from a lot of the guys. So Josh said, look, admittedly, I did not have the best attitude of kind of sitting behind and waiting my turn. So that kind of carried over, it seems like, to his practice habits and how engaged he was. This is a guy that was used to, and he talked about this today, he was used to being the man in high school. When it was time to make a play, the ball was going to Josh. Well, that hasn't happened as much. And so to go off what you were saying earlier, Wes, the mental aspect of it, waiting your turn can be hard. And then if you get your opportunity and you don't come through, that becomes another layer to that mental aspect. But again, Josh, lots of smiles today. He said, look, it feels great right now that I do have the opportunities in practice, whether it's punt return, whether it's receiver, to go and to be counted on to make some plays. So that's something. Having a renewed confidence could help him because this is a guy that has some ability.
Yeah, so we'll see how all that goes, man. I tend to, and this is nothing new. I think we've probably said this many times. I tend to think we're going to see a lot of two tight ends, and whether that's a true two tight ends, like two tight ends connected to the line, I don't think we're going to see quite as much of that. But I think it's going to be more like if you looked at the depth chart, that guy's a tight end, Jaheim Bell, for example, but really he's lining up all over the place. And I think you have some guys that sort of, Jaheim Bell really just has gotten attached to the idea of I want to be moved around. I can do anything. I can be used in multiple ways. And I think he can excel in that. And I do think that could potentially take a little bit of pressure off of what we're all expecting out of the wide receivers. I was trying to think today, man. You tell me if anybody catches, I guess, pops to your head on this. I was trying to think, who are the guys on this roster right now that are not household names that by the end of the season will be household names? Now, it's kind of sometimes because we're around it all the time. I struggle to like differentiate. Like, does the average fan know this guy, or does the hardcore fan know this guy? Is he known outside of Columbia, like the South Carolina space? What are the definitions we're using to sort of define this? You could go multiple different ways. But I dare say outside of South Carolina, certainly, and maybe even just your random average fan, I think your like good fan, your fan that pays attention, knows who Jaheim Bell is. Does the average fan walking into Williams-Brice Stadium at this point follow recruiting, follow the other stuff enough to like know who Jaheim is? I don't know. Maybe, y'all tell me. But as far as that question goes, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I feel like Jaheim Bell, especially on offense, is the guy with the best chance to not really be a household name before the season. And very quickly, people be like, man, that guy's catching a lot of passes in this offense.
Yeah, that is a good pick. And I think another part or layer to that question that you asked is generally, if you're talking about household names and guys that are going to get recognition, it's probably not going to be an offensive lineman. I hate it for those guys. It should be if an offensive lineman really has a great year. But, those guys aren't as likely. It's not as glamorous a position. Typically, guys that have the best chance to really kind of emerge are quarterbacks that touch the ball every play, running backs, receivers, anybody that touches the ball. And then on defense, guys that either make big hits, make a lot of plays, or sack the quarterback. Like, that's your main guys. So, do Gamecock fans even realize how good JJ Enagbare is? Like, just your casual fan, I don't know. I'm being serious. Like, I don't know that as many people as should realize how good of a player he is, that he could be a top 2 round NFL guy if he has another really good year. I'm not sure. I would think that more people probably know who Jordan Burch is than JJ Enagbare, like on just a very casual kind of level, I think. But Enagbare may be a decent pick for that one. I just don't feel like as many people, know who he is. But I like your Jaheim Bell pick too.
Yeah, well, and I mean Jordan Burch's recruiting process became so talked about that everybody sort of knows who he is. Now, I think if you went around the league, you're looking at it from an SEC media standpoint or just average SEC fans, I think most of them would know who Enagbare is just because he pops up on these SEC, like all SEC type lists. But yeah, as far as being like the next great South Carolina pass rusher that gets drafted in the first couple of rounds, then yeah, he maybe doesn't get that type of attention. I think for most of last year, Kevin Harris didn't really get the love compared to the production. And then towards the end of the year and then this offseason, I feel like Kevin Harris's name has sort of grown. Some of it, I believe, is people outside of this market picking up that media guide and being like, well, this guy is like the leading returning guy in the SEC as far as numbers go.
Right. Yeah, it was. It was kind of South Carolina football last year was not appointment viewing for people. I mean, just kind of call like it is, even for some Gamecock fans. And so some people almost took it as, Kevin, even if you kind of saw the stats come through, whatever, they got beat and, won 2 games and Kevin Harris did this. We don't really know the context. If you actually watch the games, it was still impressive, right? And we watch the games every week. And so you can see what he's doing in those situations. And it was impressive. So it was, like you said, a little bit of the benefit of hindsight where the season's in the rearview mirror. You kind of take a look back at what happened last season, what teams are returning, and then you say, oh, yeah, this guy's a pretty good player. You go back and look at the stats, you look at the grades, all these different type things. When you're in it, people didn't realize it as much.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So, all right, we've witnessed one bit of one practice. We'll get to witness a bit of another practice tomorrow. I was trying to think of how to answer that question. What have we learned so far? And there's a point that I should have made on Friday that I actually thought about after the fact, man. Was it noteworthy to you? Was it newsworthy to you that Beamer and the staff decided not to use the indoor facility with it raining on Friday? Because that was the first practice, first day out. Everybody's pumped up. If it's a midweek practice during the season, you probably don't want a guy stepping wrong and slipping, and you have this beautiful indoor facility, right? I'm completely being one of those people that like reads into things and tries to read somebody's mind and stuff like that. But it would have been very easy just to slide practice over to that indoor facility. I wonder, did Beamer not want to send the message? Day one, this is the first preseason, like fall practice, first camp practice of your head coaching career. I think he wanted to send the message, we ain't going inside just because it's raining. We want to attack with a mindset. Am I overthinking, or is there something to that?
There could be something to that. I mean, we typically see during practices, regular practice, if it's not raining, they're out on the field. We see guys that are still rehabbing or injured go in the indoor, and we see specialists go in the indoor and get some work as well when they're not actually on the field. We see that. So, was part of it logistics or I don't know, but I could certainly see your point. It was not a torrential downpour either. That's my other question. If we're really going to overanalyze this thing, if it was absolutely pouring, would they have moved inside? I don't know. It was wet enough to where I got lots of comments in our post-practice video about my hairstyle because it had been rained on so much. But it was not a downpour. It was kind of a sprinkling throughout, if you will. But that's a good point. You know what? I think we should just go with that. That's going to be the official line of reasoning, and I can appreciate the overanalysis there.
Yeah, according to sources, equals
right.
My head. Source is my brain. But no, I mean, I really could be overthinking it, but it got worse and worse as it went on as far as the rain goes. But I just think it would kind of be a bad sign if it's pouring outside, you probably have to go inside. But if you're like, oh man, it's raining a little bit, we can't handle that. That just sends a very bad day one message to the team. So, but yeah, dude, you got Chris. You were getting these. Some people love to comment on how you look on screen. It seems, but they were making fun of your hair and your waterlogged look.
Yes. Hey, it's okay. I'm used to it by now. It does hurt my feelings at the end of the day a lot of times, but I'll get through it, I think.
All right, what else we got, man? What do we need to hit? But before we get out of here, again, it's going to be an abbreviated show.
Yeah.
Chris and I'll tell y'all exactly what we're doing. We actually have another phone call with the folks at Steel Hands. We are locking in final details on the kickoff party. Hopefully, everybody here in the chat, everybody that's listening on the podcast, I'm going to put the link in the chat here shortly for those of you who watch the show live. Chris, hopefully they're all going to come out and join us.
I would assume that everybody listening is going to be at the party. August 20th, Gamecock Central preseason kickoff party at Steel Hands. Going to be an awesome time. Official start time, Wes, 7 o'clock is what we're calling the official start time.
Yeah, event start at 7.
Yep.
By the way, if you're on the VIP side, come see me and Chris. We're going to be out there early. I would say informal, but we're going to be talking some football, talking some recruiting at 6 o'clock. 107.5 will be out there starting at 4 o'clock, maybe before. We shall see, but definitely from 4 on to there.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. Special guests, Patrick Davis and the Midnight Choir, bringing their band for a concert. It's going to be a really fun night. So check out the VIP package. Wes, like you said, is going to drop the link. Hey, we need to find out, Wes, Patrick Bowen, and I think he asked this last show. I'm sorry we didn't get to it last time. Is Steel Hands handicap accessible? I think so.
I think it has to be.
I think it has to be.
But, again, we're going to be on a call actually in about 3 minutes, so we will find out that for sure. But I think it has to be.
Yep. I think it does. Yeah, should be good. And I do know that I'm just sitting there trying to think of the layout. I don't even know if there's stairs anywhere or anything like that. And I think, yeah, so I think everything's good on that front. So should be good. We'll double check. Appreciate you asking that question.
Yes. At some point, Chris, we are, I would imagine, going to go back to a show every day. Right? You think? Yeah.
That's the game plan. It's the game plan.
I believe we're
roughly
contractually obligated. We're not, but maybe after the party, after we get all that situated, settled, we get the party out of the way. That following week, we go to every day.
Yeah,
potentially.
Okay, so, let's write that in pencil and go with that.
All right, y'all. For real. Appreciate y'all joining us. Sorry for the abbreviated show, but we didn't want to leave you hanging. We actually will have plenty to talk about later on that week and later on this week, I should say, because we will be able to go watch practice tomorrow for a little bit. So we'll have some new observations, some new stuff to talk about, some new player availabilities between now and then as well. Appreciate y'all, as always. Appreciate the support. We'll see you very, very soon. Y'all have a good one.